welcome to another episode of HR Nightmares. And I'm here with Beth Looney and Andrea Walker of Lighthouse Films. We've got a super special guest in Andrea, as she's been a friend and client of Leath HR Group for several years now.
3 years.
Time flies. Mm-hmm. Thank you. But we're going to dig into the film industry and looking at what Andrea and her husband, Brad, who co-own Lighthouse Films, have to deal with. And of course, we love stories, so we love talking about HR nightmares, and you can blind the names and you can blind the films or whoever you are working with externally. But you've got a long history of working in film, and so we'd love to hear some great stories from you. We're here to give realistic advice, and as a reminder, we are somebody's HR person, but we're not your HR person yet, unless you want to contract with us. So take everything that we say with a grain of salt. And of course, we want you to submit those write-ins. That's the best part about some of these episodes is we all sort of play HR consultant for anonymous HR write-ins. So we'll put your knowledge to the test. So anyway, with no further ado, I want to formally introduce Andrea. So like I said, she co-owns Lighthouse Films. Go check them out. A lot of their creatives are just really fun to watch, like vibrant, action-packed. And if you go to their website, one of the things, and we've talked about this before, but your mission is like a really cool mission. I don't know how much time you spent on that, but I want to ask you about that. They started making promotional camp videos in Maine. I love Maine. And grew quickly. And so they're a full-service boutique digital cinema production company. Again, go check them out. Lighthouse has definitely become a powerhouse for national brand. They're doing all kinds of commercial filming, high-end stock photography for Getty. That's huge. What I like, too, is you're multi-dimensional. And you've got a headquarters in Wilmington's historic Brooklyn Arts District, and they actually completed a restoration of a historic building and won an award for that. So you're like crazy award-winning power couple down there in downtown Wilmington.
We're trying.
They do it all.
And like I said, her and Beth have worked together for 3 years now, and so we're so lucky to have you in our network and appreciate you trusting us with that. But let's turn it over. I'm going to turn it over to the two of you. You've got a great rapport. I know Beth's got tons of questions for Andrea.
It has been really fun. We have worked together for 3 years.
I know. It's
crazy.
It has flown by.
Yeah, it has really flown by. And we've had some really great highs and a couple little but mostly the highs.
I would say every business has a little but yeah.
I think one thing is really interesting is small business. A lot of people that listen are owners of small businesses. Lisa is owning this small business. You're owning this one. I've owned one in the past. What are some of the big struggles you see in owning a small business?
Well, first I want to highlight what I love about owning a small business. Like, and COVID really, I think, showed all of us that like small business and entrepreneurs are the backbone of this country. And so we have 2 kids. I tell them all the time, like, I want you to be entrepreneurs because it just helps you learn how to collaborate and be a team and shift and be flexible, and you can just invent things out of thin air. So that's what I love about being a small business owner. What's hard about being a small business owner is you wear multiple hats all the time, and that also can be really fun because it never, ever gets stagnant, ever. But it's really hard because you are doing 5 jobs every day.
Well, also
so
you're
working
really
with
with creatives. You're working with creatives, so that's like a whole. You kind of get a picture for like, okay, if you're working with engineers all day, that's one thing. You're working with consultants all day, that's another thing. You're working with creatives all day. Yeah. I mean, tell us about that.
Super emotional. Like we pride ourselves on our footage, like being emotionally charged. Well, that comes with like emotionally charged personalities. And I'm not saying that in a negative way. Like, we feel so big at our company, but that means you feel the highs and then you really feel like the lows or the like Beth was saying. Like, you feel everything. And so our company just, like, being a small business, being a family-owned business, like, it is a family. So, like, we have tried to operate sometimes like, let's try being a little more corporate, And that's just not who we are. And we're like, no, we only know how to operate as a family. And so we just feel everything really big.
I think
What's it like for you working with them?
It is. I love it. I honestly do.
We have awesome people.
Yeah, I love to see how you all interact. And one thing I love is I think that you give your creative team such huge boundaries. I don't think you fence them in by, I think
you have to.
I love that. And I think that their work then is better for it.
Yeah. And you have to trust the people that you surround yourself with. And so, oh my gosh, I could go on and on with everything that Beth has helped us with. But, part of it is making sure that you're hiring the right team. So you identify, your company values, and then you make sure that the employees that you're hiring have same or similar values. So then you can have these like wide pastures that they can just like play and they run with it. It's pretty amazing.
One thing I think is really neat with them too is that the hiring is so important, especially with such a small company with a bunch of creatives, and you cannot ruin that culture that you have built, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's been interesting. Sometimes when we've done a big recruiting project and we aren't really finding or sourcing the right people, we'll just pause it. And so we're not forced into hiring somebody. And I love that you guys understand that.
Yeah. We would rather not hire or rush into a hire and have someone that's not the right fit, because that's not good for them. It's not good for us. And like going back to that like family business, small company culture, like we've worked so hard to develop the culture that we have that like you're really protective of it. So it's nothing for us to interview someone like 5 times, 6 times, come see us twice, talk to Beth, talk to me. We're going to have you go out to lunch with the team you're going to work with. Like we have to make sure that everyone feels really good about it.
Did you have to make a mistake to realize that you have to be slow to hire the way that you are, because one body is such a big piece of the pie on your smaller team?
Yeah, and everyone comes to Lighthouse for a different period of time, and Brad and I just keep reminding ourselves they are here for the amount of time that they're supposed to be here, and you try not to take it personal, when they decide to move on.
Wow, that's so mature. It is. Like literally nobody has ever said that.
I said the word try. Of course, like you internalize everything, but then we just have to like wish them well wherever they're going and hope that we were able to give them as much as we could while they were with us. But of course, we have realized by maybe some quick hires or maybe someone that has different values than Lighthouse. And again, I'm not saying that in a negative way. One of our values is flexibility, which means you have to be okay with the gray, because you have to be okay wearing multiple hats. You have to be able to shift really quickly. Well, that's not a predictable environment, and some people really want to have a predictable environment where they know what their job description is, and each day is going to fall within that job description. And there's nothing wrong with that either. That's just our company can't operate that way.
I think it's really funny sometimes the question that I think we get where we're like, oh, I wish you didn't ask. So what's a typical day in the life? And you're like, there's nothing typical. Like, don't ask
and
that
that's
question.
the perfect answer. Like, right. There's nothing typical. Yeah.
Is it hard to transition people from outside of the film industry into Lighthouse Films because they're not... Like, I feel like if you've worked in the film industry, and so many people are out of work right now, and I hope everybody gets back to work soon. But like, you work nights, you're on the road, you work 24 hours in a row, you're not eating well, you're not like you almost like. How do you deal with that? So first of all, transitioning people from outside the film industry. Second of all, how do you make sure your employees are like holistically taking care of themselves, because it is odd. It can be odd hours, right?
Gosh, it's really hard, and we talk with Beth a lot about this, so I'll try to answer your multi-tier question. Most of the people that come to us are already from the film industry, so they know that they've signed up for cray cray. Every now and then we have someone, like our office manager, we really needed someone that was excellent with numbers and accounting and managing an office and a facility, so she came from outside the film industry, and actually it's pretty awesome because we have these industry standards that no one questions. Now, the ones for safety and all of that, of course.
Yeah.
However, sometimes we will do the same thing over and over and over again until someone doesn't understand why, and then they'll, why do you do it this way? And the next thing we know, we're like, we don't know. It's how it's always been done, and then sometimes there's better solutions out there. So it's good to have someone from a different perspective ask those why questions. So that's been really great. People understand when they get into the film industry, it is a really challenging lifestyle.
Yeah.
What's hard about having a production company, and we value family so much, is that we want to give work-life balance. So I'll tell people all the time, like, we're trying something impossible. We're trying to give our employees work-life balance, but we're still in the film industry, and we're gonna do our very best. But it is
What do you
not
do?
always
What
easy.
do you do? Like, what's something unique that you guys have like deployed that maybe other film companies don't offer?
A reduced work week. So on Fridays, our teams, if they don't have any pressing deadlines, leave at 1:00. And the reason that we do that is we know the film industry is crazy, and we know the very next week you may not be able to go grocery shopping, you may be working late, you may be traveling, and so that gives you time to get a haircut, an oil change, walk your dog, all those things. We also have something kind of informal called wrap days, and we try to put it on the calendar where if some of our team members are going to be out for a certain period of time on production, or let's say they're working both Saturday and Sunday, we're going to put a wrap day like before the shoot or after the shoot, so they can just like have a day to pack, unpack,
Go to
rest.
the bank. That was the big thing. Remember on the news, I was like, I just need to get in front of the bank. It's like, can't you do that online? But there was like that need to go into the bank.
Yeah, because people need to understand, like, these can be like 10 days in a row, 16-hour days. You're traveling, like the days are very physical and they're taxing. And just building in some of that downtime when we can is good.
I think one thing that you do, and it's so funny because I'm included in so much, but man, I wish I was included in this one thing. They take the whole team to Bald Head. They rent a house, and then they have this week of, not a week, long weekend.
Like 4 nights.
Yeah,
That's super
4
nice.
nights. And then they have scavenger hunts. They cook. Different people cook.
We have brought
It is so
yoga
amazing.
instructors out, team building people out. It's
You guys
been
are very
amazing.
generous. Like, for the 3 years that we've known you, that's one thing. You're kind and you're generous. Even the way that she speaks is like, well, is that a negative thing?
So positive.
Well, one of our
Yeah.
company values is positivity. So, like, it just starts to get contagious after a while.
I love it.
One of the things I wanted to talk to you about is in the recruiting. We're still talking, if we're talking about that. I know that we were able to have a really good recruiting session in trying to bring one of our post-production managers in. Can you talk a little bit about how we were able to get them from New York City down to little old Wilmington?
That's a big deal.
It was huge.
Oh, so
Yeah.
I'll let you talk, and then I'll give you my 2 cents on attracting talent to Wilmington and the struggles there.
So, a lot of people from New York and LA in the film industry want to know what else is out there. And so a lot of those individuals look at Wilmington as an option because minus the strike right now, consistently, Wilmington has been a great option for people in the industry to move and have consistent work, raise a family. Prices are more affordable than those locations. So people will reach out and start asking us questions about what's it like to live in Wilmington. And, however, we can't really compete with LA and New York salaries, and our cost of living is not as high here. So, and that's something else we work with Leath HR to make sure that our salaries are staying consistent with what they should be for our region. We posted a position, and we were getting some good applicants, and then an applicant just like kind of blew us away because he was going to be coming from a streaming network in New York City and was looking for a change for his family. And so I think it was just like really clearly explaining who we are, and this is the position we can offer you, but this is also like how hard we're going to try to give you a work-life balance here. And then we love to brag on Wilmington too. So
same.
those candidates, you bring them in, and you book reservations at, restaurants you want to show off, and Wilmington just sells itself too.
That's awesome.
It was really exciting, and then it was fun on my end. I did a little tiny bit, but I helped him kind of make sure he had some questions about schools and things like that. Now, granted, I didn't know every single thing, and I think I passed a little bit to you, but it was nice to talk to him as they were about to kind of embark on that huge change.
That's a huge change.
It was huge.
And I want to brag on Leath HR and Beth too, because when you're recruiting someone that comes from a larger corporation, so I can tell you, like, hey, here's the benefit package we offer. But when you have an HR specialist, like, bragging on, let me tell you what this company's benefit package is. And then it just provides this, like, level of professionalism that they're not only being interviewed by the company owners, but then I'm like, okay, Beth, I have a great candidate here. I'm going to hand him off to you for the next interview. And then he's able to meet with an HR person. So it just gives us a level of professionalism.
Always be closing.
Exactly.
That's cool. I mean, a lot of communities that are kind of on the rise, like Wilmington, North Carolina is, around the U.S. struggle with talent attraction. And it's funny because once people visit or move here to check it out for a couple of years, they never leave because they're just enthralled with the historic aspect and the beaches and everything. But I will say our Chamber of Commerce is doing some work on talent attraction campaign, and they've engaged a world-renowned consulting firm called DCI, and they're targeting specifically New York, New Jersey, DC, and then areas of Georgia that are just sick of the traffic, I'm sure around Atlanta or whatever, and targeting them for some advertising to move to Wilmington, North Carolina. Mm-hmm. So hopefully, in the next 12 or 18 months, we'll start to get some national, at least recognition, and people not think we're Wilmington, Delaware.
I know. That happens all the time.
Oh, yeah, it happens all the time.
But I think it's wonderful, especially when we can recruit somebody and then bring them to a company like Lighthouse. I think it just works, I think that he's now embedded in the community, and it's great. I mean, it's a huge thing, and I think you should be really proud of that.
Well, thank you.
Let's talk about working with your husband. It seems like you guys still like each other.
We do. and I can wrap this, I will put a nice tidy bow at the end of this conversation of how Leath HR also helps with that. But
nice.
We don't know any different. We got married. We're little bitty babies. I was 23 and he was 24. And I was working nonprofits and going to grad school. He was in the film industry. And I tell people all the time, if one person in your business owns a business, it means everyone. Our kids are part of this business too. There's no escaping it. Even if you want to have your own path, you are a part of that small business. And so for a while I was juggling, working at UNCW and Lighthouse. And then we started a family. I was like, how am I going to do all of this? And so I came over to the business full time. And it's all we really know.
How long has it been?
So I mean, Brad started working in 92 in the film industry, really in college, but 92. And then I came over full time in 2005, and we moved to Wilmington. We were in Dallas. We moved to Wilmington in 2001. And our whole married lives. I don't even know what it's like to not work with your husband. I don't know what that's like.
You know.
I do know. Let me tell you how it is. It's so funny because I did work with, I've told this story so many times, everyone's sick of it, but I worked with my husband in his business. Same thing. We had little kids. I was dragged into it anyway, and I was working in nonprofits, very weird, and then decided to just go full-time working at the company. But it just was, I see you guys do it. I'm like, dang, I wish I would have known you back then because we did not do anything right at all. But it seems like you guys have just a lot of respect for each other, and you each have different, your worlds kind of mesh, but they're also, you have a definite pillar of what you're responsible for.
I think that helps. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Brad is super creative. And Beth was saying, it's important that he has that space to be creative. So that means if I can take operational things off of his plate, then he can stay creative. And that's what's best for our business and best for our clients and, makes money. And then I love the operational part of it. So I can focus on that.
I'm a new person working with my husband. It's been a year and a half now, and we've had some ups, we've had some downs.
That doesn't go away.
Yeah.
You just learn to somehow figure it out.
And I'm like a really direct communicator, and like sometimes my feedback is like a little, harsh. Sorry, honey, you're doing a great job. But it is tough sometimes, and like you kind of have to. I don't know if you find yourself doing this, but like we find ourselves like resetting our boundaries and and we're like learning all the time, like when I shouldn't make comments about what he should be doing versus when he wants my feedback for real. It's a delicate balance of like what's too much for me to be chiming in as like the owner of the company, but not fully in the day-to-day with him anymore. Where before I was like, I wanted to know all the details of everything just to make sure like my company was going to survive. But it's thriving. And so he's done a great job. He just has a different style than me. And so it's iterating on the boundaries there. But, it could be an HR nightmare. For God's sake, he's sleeping with the owner.
There could be something I need to talk to you. One thing, though, is funny is that I think we did not do well, and I don't know how you guys do, but I think that part of the struggles that we had owning a business is that we talked about it. We woke up, sleeping in bed, wake up, talk about it before we even get out of bed to brush our teeth.
Yeah.
Then we go to work together. We drove in separate cars, thank goodness. And then then we would talk. We would work all day. We'd come home, have dinner, talk about it. And I felt like we never shut down because I would never. Like you and I would never talk about business that many hours, right?
Yeah.
Because we're just coworkers together, and I think that was a huge difference. Do you feel like you guys have enough time?
Like when we start to get into the vortex of Leath HR group, like and then it's like, whoa, pull yourself out of here. Like I married you for a reason.
Let's talk about something
other than HR stuff.
So for years, we would get after ourselves, like, we're going to go out to dinner. We're not going to say a single thing about business. And, so we kind of gave up. And so we just like talk about business all the time. But I started feeling not so bad about it because I had a friend come up to me and she was like, you and Brad must have the most interesting things to talk about. My husband and I just talk about cleaning supplies and who's picking the kids up. And I
That's
never.
a nice perspective.
I was like, we do have a lot to talk about.
It's a nice perspective.
Yeah.
Because if I think about it, we are very lucky to be talking about all of our lovely clients and like things that you guys are dealing with and growing team.
I was talking about pollution and air testing. No wonder.
That's true. Like Brad's bouncing
engineers.
off creative ideas with me. So it is like, it is pretty exciting. Okay, I want to give you your tidy bow. Okay, so you probably don't even know that we do this behind the scenes, but sometimes, an HR issue will come up and we'll be talking about it at home. Like, well, this is how I think we should handle it. And Brad's like, well, this is how I think we should handle it. Before we had Beth, like, who knows where we would land in that? Like, who knows? Kind of whoever showed up to work first, maybe. And so now, if we really can't, like, have clarity, we're like, hey, Beth, we have this going on. And then she doesn't always get to hear who won.
Oh, yeah, that's so funny.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
Like whose idea it was. You're just totally objective.
It doesn't matter because, like, we would much rather have Beth's perspective of, like, we'll tell her, like, oh, we're thinking we could do this or do this. And she's like, oh, definitely do this or
like,
definitely don't do this.
But especially around like emotional people with big feelings, having a consistent response to situations versus sort of like if you're feeling high or you're feeling low that day, like as creatives yourself, it can be nice to have like a steady, consistent brain on those types of hot employee relations issues.
Yeah.
And we talk about this sometimes too because I'm a fractional HR person, so I'm not there every single day.
Yeah.
And so it's like I'm an inside outsider.
Yeah, and that works. Like, Beth comes to our office in person every other week, but if something pops up in between, like, she's always available for us and our employees. But the every other week just works out perfect. I mean, we're a company of 10 people.
Yeah.
When do people usually hire, like, an on-staff? I've heard it's, like, 30 or more, or...
It depends on, like, how many issues you've got. I mean, think about this. If you've got people, like, splicing cables out on the road, construction workers, 30 is probably about the right number. If you've got, like, software engineers, it's probably more like 80. You know what I mean? Like, because it just depends, like who's low key and who's not low key.
But you know, like Beth gave us a simple advice about 2 years ago of sometimes you just think, oh, this is going to work itself out. You know, like, okay, it's better to just like be direct, have a conversation about it, and everyone gets immediate feedback. And then you can go forward and everyone knows kind of like, oh, okay, this is what I need to improve on. And then they have a safe place where they can tell us like why maybe miscommunication we had or what we could have done better. That simple advice of like, and Beth will tell me like, you need to have this conversation tomorrow. I'm like, really?
That's awesome.
We have so much going on. She's like, no, like, trust me, have this conversation tomorrow. But just that simple advice of like, go ahead and give feedback as you go instead of like waiting for an annual review or something.
And I think that sometimes small business owners, especially when we started out, we were just, annoyed with, oh, this guy is not doing his job right. And we would talk about it all the time. But it's like we had some hesitancy to talk to him because we were nervous that then they would, I don't know, flee or do whatever. And
my gosh, people actually really love the feedback.
People want feedback.
They want feedback. Yeah.
That's good.
Awesome.
So something
Especially
I was afraid of
team.
is not that scary. Yeah.
So here's the thing. I'm on a couple of different boards, and one is like a Smithsonian affiliated museum here in town. We were going through like a mission exercise and like strategic plan and everything.
Her mission is great.
And I remember I pulled it up because I think you had told me, you were like, you got to check their mission out. And when you go to the Lighthouse Films work page, it says, at Lighthouse Films, we're dedicated to capturing organic moments and jaw-dropping imagery to create emotionally charged films that connect with people, humanize brands, and above all, tell a good story. I mean, dang, that doesn't capture exactly what you guys do. That is like A+. Was that this is like pre-Chat GPT? I mean, you guys came up with this.
Oh my gosh, that was years ago. We had a great writer, a graduate from North Carolina School of the Arts, and he worked with us for 5 years and just knew us and helped us come up with that.
Yeah, It's really cool. I love it. It's,
It tells the story, right? If that's what you are, you're storytellers. It's good that it tells the story. There's so many of them that are just like, we are dedicated to customer service.
Yeah, like just don't even have it.
Yeah, don't do it unless it's really like, what are you really doing? I think people are afraid to say what they really are doing. Like, but you don't, right? That's exactly what you do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But anyway.
So I was thinking about just HR nightmares with film and travel, like. Any weird things happen?
I thought of one right now.
I didn't even ask you before this. Like, any weird thing? I think about just travel in general for all the companies I've ever worked with. And, like, sometimes you'll get, like, CEOs or owners be like, well, can't we have people double up in a room? Or everybody's got a carpool together. And, like, you never know who's got, like, gastro issues or, is going through, like, I don't know, the personal issues. They got to, like, talk to their divorce attorney, like, in their hotel room. Like, I don't know. But have you guys ever had any issues or people? I had like U.S. Marshals kick a door down looking for, an attorney. But any fun issues related to travel and film?
So many things are going through my head.
I have one idea, but I'll let you say it if you want to say it.
Well, first, as you're talking about like, can we have separate rooms and all that, like early in our career, I'm thinking of an instance where like everyone was staying in a bunk, like
road rules.
Yeah, I was like, everyone was in one room in bunk beds, co-ed, no flushing toilets. Like, was that good HR, Beth? Like,
oh my gosh.
But sometimes filming takes you in really rural places. We were filming in a place in Vermont where it was like 1,000 acres and there's like one flushing toilet and all the bathrooms were communal. Like, so sometimes you can't, in the film industry, provide everything.
Yeah.
You don't know where you're going to be filming. We'll do our very best. But that was a long time ago when we were
What's the next thing that came to mind?
Okay. Well, I did have someone ask if they could bring their baby goats to work once.
Were they cute or they were annoying?
Oh, I said no, but
I can't believe you said no.
They would have been adorable.
Oh man!
But I thought it was going to be distracting. But that same day, 2 people brought dogs, and then the dogs were super distracting. And the person was like, my goats would have been better than this.
I can't.
But we did let her bring her baby chicks to work one day.
What?
But I'm thinking of an instance where we were down in Mexico filming, and our permit ended at 11. And so we filmed up to 11, and then we started to wrap our gear. Well, our local production crew, we think, tipped off the local police, and then they came and they were like, we're going to put, everything's going in jail, everything's being confiscated, unless you pay us, and whatever the amount of money was, and it had to be like immediately in their hands. And then once people saw that we were just like paying money, like everyone started lining up. And
Oh my God.
I have no idea if you can keep that story or not. It's kind of crazy. So Brad never gets spooked by anything. And he called me. He's like, he was going to stay a few extra days and film. He's like, you got to fly me back. I got to get this gear back into the United States as soon as possible. And also, another layer in that trip, Customs did not check our equipment into Mexico properly.
Oh, nice.
There's all these things that you have to do with carnets, where they have to check every single piece of equipment to make sure you come back with every piece of equipment. So, so they can't prove that you were down there selling it. So they were trying to get across the border, and they look at our carnet, and they're like, no one checked you into Mexico.
Gosh.
So yeah, they could have, and it was no fault of our own. Customs did it wrong. They could have confiscated all of our gear. We're talking like 26 cases.
Of thousands and thousands of dollars.
Millions.
Yeah. Oh my
million.
God.
Yeah. And like
Million. Tomato.
But everything worked out okay. Yeah. The customs people kind of looked at all of our gear, and they're like, just go.
Doing work in Mexico, I guess, anywhere outside of the States, there's all kinds of laws and cultural customs, but Mexico in particular, I've worked for a company where, drug mules, worked inside the company's, local facilities and would load stuff up in the back of tractor trailers, and, the company was liable, and one of the local leaders for the company ended up being a major drug cartel, and he was the HR person. And he was the mayor of the town and was the chief drug cartel. Yeah.
Were you like,
I didn't know the guy.
One time we went to Poland with the company with my ex-husband, and they were like, oh, my friends, we can't get your equipment out of customs, but if you give us $500, we can.
Oh.
And we're like, we are stuck because we had to go. And so we're like, we don't know if are we being filmed, being bribed? So we didn't know what to do. We called our attorney in the United States, and he's like, well, I don't do international law. We're like, well, we're here. We need help.
To pay or not to pay? Do I negotiate with this person? Would you take $100?
And sure enough, we got them to drive it to our facility. It was really.
But you just wonder, if I give you $500, will you then ask me? Now you know I have $500. Will you ask me for $1,000 now? And then how much are you going to extort me for?
And I felt like we didn't have enough time to think.
No.
We didn't have enough time to
think.
think.
You get nervous. You're in another country. What if I get put in jail?
Right.
You learn from every experience. And so our key thing is, if we're going to go internationally or an area that we just are not familiar with at all, you have a local fixer. And so that person just...
How do you find that? That's what we are.
Local fixers.
You are Wilmington local fixers.
I want a hat. Shades.
It's like the woof.
T-shirts.
Local fixer. I love that.
I like it too.
So cool. I would love to know that.
So how do you find a local fixer?
Oh, you just... Well, okay. The film industry ends up being a pretty small community.
Okay.
So you just start reaching out to people that maybe have done work in that area. So much of the film industry is word of mouth. And that's usually how we find individuals.
Cool. Mm-hmm. So what do fixers do?
Okay, so let's say you're going to Singapore and you know nothing about it. So they're going to tell you okay, I would choose a hotel in this part of town, or I'm going to. They know maybe a company to rent vans from that are trustworthy, punctual.
Not going to disappear.
Yeah.
One's not
they
gonna
just
peel
know
off
all
and-
that inside information.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's cool. Do you have to
it
pay
ends up
them
being
through
pretty
Venmo,
critical.
How do you pay a fixer? I'm like
with a check or
there
direct
has to be, like,
deposit.
some
or,
sunglasses. Yeah, I'm thinking about Pulp Fiction.
yeah, it's like the wolf. It's like the wolf.
Wolf.
But like, I mean, I guess they're like a producer, but they have so much inside knowledge.
And
They're
they
called
know
a
the
fixer.
inside. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We're
that's
changing
cool.
our titles.
Local fixer.
We're going to change our titles.
I think
what's
it's fitting for y'all.
Yeah, I like it. I'm into it. There's a new one that says I'm calling HR, and Andy was going to put our logo all over the back.
Cute.
So that's okay. So what's been your favorite project in the last 12 months or so?
Oh my gosh, that's a really tough question. So we have been doing an unbelievable campaign with Twisted Tea, owned by
I love all those commercials.
Boston Beer.
Yeah,
they're so fun. So and the planning is fun. The clients are unbelievable. It's taken us to some really cool places. So that's the first thing that comes to mind.
Where'd you get to go?
So several things. We get to go to cool places. So we have filmed in like Mammoth, California, up in a gorgeous lake in New Hampshire. But we also, Miami, Atlanta. But we also have gotten to encourage them to film in North Carolina.
Oh, that's very cool.
That's cool.
Yeah. 3 times.
Wow.
Yeah. So twice in Wilmington, and we have a production coming up in the Triangle. So that always makes
We
us
should
feel
have been
good.
drinking Twisted Teas.
I know.
I haven't had all of a sudden the next clip.
Hi.
But those creative meetings are so much fun to be a part of because nothing's off the table.
Yeah.
You know, like,
They're just trying to look like they're having a party and
well, those are real people.
Okay.
The commercials are real Instagram, Twisted Tea diehards. Like
Okay.
those.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
inside scoop.
It's real talent.
that's awesome. What other questions did you have?
I was thinking of something that was a sort of an HR nightmare that it wasn't. But I
got
think
one,
that's
too.
so interesting is that, you know, you have the professional company and then you're working with so many contracted staff people.
You mentioned contractors, and so one of our write-ins was about contractors, and as you're a small business, that we deal with this a lot, but moving from 1099s to employees and thinking about benefits and contracts. And when you guys first started, is that something that you had to deal with, or are you still dealing with that? What's kind of your relationship with your employees, and how do you sort of figure out the balance of what to do with contractors versus employees?
Yeah, great question. And we're always thinking about it. So, like, Brad and I never really set out to own a production company. It's just something that happened over time. You know, we got one employee and then a second employee. And however, the film industry, you're always going to work with contractors because there's no way we could ever afford a staff of people, a specialized colorist, a specialized visual effects person. Like, so when we have those needs and we can't handle it in-house, then we're going to contract out for like that project. But it is tough knowing like, okay, when is it time to add that person to our staff? And then, you know, we talked to Beth a lot about that. And so I think you kind of consistently look like, okay, are we hiring the same type of contractor over and over and over again? And then you look at the math of like, okay, would it make more sense that this person is a staff person instead of a contractor? So you're just always weighing those pros and cons.
Yeah. We use 1099 for the consultants at Leath HR Group, and it's just, I would say, making sure that we review the contracts every couple of years, like with attorneys, and we make sure that's like fair and enforceable, and it's like we go back and forth, like just to make sure everybody feels okay about the terms, right? But it's really important that you use an employment attorney to write your contracts that is like listening to what your business does, because it's easy to go on like LegalZoom and download a boilerplate.
The wrong kind of thing.
Oftentimes like referencing things that don't even make sense for, like in our case, like a consulting firm. It could be a lot different than what your contracts look like for a grip or a special effects person, or what a construction company's contract would look like for a graphic designer for a specific project or whatever, an ad agency. So anyway, I would just recommend that people just really think it's worth the money to just go out and like get a professional to listen, digest, and create a contract that's specific to your business. But then also, like, if people want to be employees, you should maybe be talking about that every once in a while, or at least giving the space to bring it up as an option. I mean,
yeah, and I think you really need to work with your accounting folks just to make sure, like, when you forecast out the need versus how much time, like, for different companies, it's going to be different kind of scenarios, right? But with yours, because they're kind of in and out so often, they're not kind of with us every single, 52 week. They're not here 50 weeks a year, and so it might not work for that. But yeah, I don't know. I'm thinking.
all right, craziest
things.
HR story of all time, HR nightmare of all time. Doesn't have to be at Lighthouse Films. Could have been before.
I don't know.
She's so nice. She forgave everyone.
She's like, they're okay.
The lady that tried
enough.
to get naked on her set.
Yeah, she's like,
guy
that's okay. I'll get you a
took the
bathing
one
suit. Don't worry
flushable
about it.
bathroom before she had a chance to go. Like, she forgives everyone.
The person in Mexico is like putting them in jail.
Yeah.
It's like, okay. Yeah.
That's a good story.
Yeah.
A bad story that ended well. So I'm happy that.
But the film
Nobody got
industry is
locked
really,
up.
I mean, it's so interesting. I'm sure there's probably things. You probably think of them tomorrow.
What's one
Yeah.
thing that you like for everybody to know about the film industry in general, and specifically like the benefits that it brings to a community? We're sort of a small city in southeastern North Carolina with big dreams and a big history of doing film right and attracting great producers or directors from big cities now. I mean, come here. The work-life balance is amazing. Quality of life is awesome in Wilmington, North Carolina. We want you all. But like, talk to us about just what film can do for a community from like an economic development standpoint, a cultural standpoint.
Sure. Oh, the film community and the creative community in Wilmington is unbelievable because you've alluded to this. So many people have hand chosen Wilmington to be their forever home. So we have amazing talent from people that have lived here their whole lives. We have amazing talent that have chosen to move here from all over the United States and the globe even. So we really, the crew and the talent we have in Wilmington rivals anything that you're going to find anywhere else. And so that's one of the reasons we attract people to choose to do their projects here. Their features, the shows, independent films. Anyone that comes here to film, they just are blown away by the crew and how they're like, they're so down to earth. They're so hardworking. They're so positive. Because when any of us are succeeding, we're all succeeding because our community is so tight-knit.
That's cool.
Yeah. So, and it's amazing how film is like a glass of water that just spreads out to our entire community. Downtown restaurants are going to do better. Rental cars are going to do better. Hotels are going to do, it's
Truck rental places.
everything.
People are going to go to Best Buy and big screen TVs and lumber and everything. I mean, it's just
everything.
anything
You
to
know,
make a
think
set.
about catering, props,
Yeah.
wardrobe, and you want to source as much as that local. So if you need to do
Right.
a quick change, you can just
Lighting,
run and
chairs,
exchange it. Yeah. Event places are going to be renting more tents and more chairs. And it's unbelievable what film can bring economically to a community.
And I think the local film commission here is like wilmingtonfilmcommission.com or something. And there's all kinds of really cool details about shows that have been filmed here before and the production companies that are headquartered here and the kinds of clients that they work with. So go check that out and get involved. I mean, we got a really cool film festival once a year, right?
Yeah,
You wanna talk about
Cucaloris
that?
is fun. Go see.
funnest.
Go see. Yeah, it was just voted one of the coolest film festivals in the United States. So it is fun. The vibe is awesome. Go see, a film, a block of films, get a pass, go to some of the events. It's great.
Awesome. Cucaloris. Any final thoughts?
No, just thanks for having me.
Thank you
I
for-
love working with you. and your team.
We love Beth. She helps us
we
so
love
much.
Beth too.
Yay.
And it's a Beth Fest. Local fixer. Andrea, thank you so much.
you.
Thank
This-
you for
this
being
was
here.
fun.
And this is another episode of HR Nightmares. If you like what you heard, make sure you hit subscribe so you never go without another episode and you get alerted when new ones pop up. But you can listen to us anywhere where you listen to podcasts. And then also we love it when you watch on YouTube. You can see all of our crazy expressions. So thank you so much. Have a great day.